I came home from a 3-day trip to find a lock on my kitchen door and my daughter-in-law holding the key. She smiled at me like she owned the place and said, "Things are going to be different around here now." At first, I thought she was joking. But when I tried to make a cup of tea, I realized every cabinet, every drawer, every part of my own home was suddenly off limits. My son stood behind her, eyes low, hands in his pockets, quiet as guilt itself. Something inside me shifted that day, a cold, steady knowing, because while I'd been away visiting my sister, someone had done more than rearrange my house. They had tried to erase me from it. And when I finally checked the deed, my name, my own name, was gone. You know, sweetheart, I never cared much for vacations. I've always been a homebody, happiest when I'm tending my garden or baking a pie with the radio humming low. But when my sister Ruth in Ohio fell ill, I packed a small bag and went to help her for a few days. Just 3 nights. That's all. I left the house tidy, refrigerator full, and told my son, Daniel, to keep an eye on things. Daniel's wife, Nicole, had been living with us since their lease ended a few months back. I didn't mind it at first. I thought it would be nice to have company again. She was polite enough in the beginning, though there was always something in her tone, a sharpness hiding under sugar. Still, I told myself she was just stressed, adjusting to married life. When I returned that Monday morning, the air around my house felt different. The curtains were drawn tight. The front porch light was still on from the night before. And Nicole's car sat parked right in the center of my driveway, in the spot I'd used for 25 years. Inside, it smelled of some perfume I didn't recognize. Sweet, expensive, too strong for my liking. I called out, "I'm home." No answer. I walked toward the kitchen, rolling my suitcase behind me, already picturing my coffee pot. But when I turned the knob, it wouldn't move. There was a silver padlock hanging on the pantry door. My heart sank. "Nicole?" I called again. That's when she appeared, hair tied up, nails painted, wearing my apron. She leaned against the counter like it was her stage. "Oh, you're back early," she said, almost disappointed. "I told you I'd be home Monday morning," I replied. "What's with the lock?" She smiled, that kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. "Oh, that. I just like keeping things organized. From now on, we'll be using my system." My system. I felt the words hit me like small stones. My kitchen had been my heart for decades, the place where every holiday meal, every argument, every moment of laughter happened. And now it was hers? Daniel came in a few moments later, rubbing the back of his neck. "Mom, Nicole just wants things a bit more structured around here," he said softly. I looked at him and saw something new. Avoidance, guilt, fear. Maybe I didn't argue. Not that day. I made my tea using the kettle from the guest cabinet, pretending it didn't matter. But deep down, something started to burn. Quiet, slow. Like a pilot light turning on after years of neglect. Over the next 2 days, small things kept catching my eye. The mail tray, where I always kept the bills, was empty. My important folders, property tax receipts, insurance forms are gone from the desk drawer. Nicole kept taking calls in whispers, then glancing at me when I passed. When I finally checked the living room shelf, where I kept my old metal box of papers, the deed to the house included, it wasn't there. "Oh, I moved that," Nicole said casually when I asked. It was cluttering up the space. I remember just staring at her, holding my hands together so they wouldn't shake. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of my bed, listening to the ticking of the clock and the faint hum of the refrigerator. Something was wrong. I could feel it in my bones. The next morning, when they both left for work, I went to my filing cabinet in the study. My hands were trembling as I searched through old tax folders until finally, I found it, my copy of the deed. It looked the same at first. But when I brought it closer to the light, I saw a new document tucked behind it, a transfer of title form. My name had been replaced with both theirs. The signature under mine wasn't mine. My throat went dry. I traced the pen stroke. Someone had forged my hand. I sat there for a long time, staring out the window, realizing that the people I had loved, fed, and sheltered had been planning to take the very roof over my head. And the worst part? My son's signature was there too. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just disrespect. It was betrayal. I don't remember how long I sat in that chair, staring at the forged signature, my name written by someone else's hand. My breath felt heavy, as if I were breathing through cloth. For years, I'd trusted that paper, tucked it away like a piece of my soul. And now there it was, a lie, sitting right under my nose. I wanted to believe it was a misunderstanding. I told myself maybe Daniel had signed something for refinancing, or Nicole had misunderstood some paperwork. But deep down, I already knew better. Nicole wasn't the type to misunderstand things. She was the type to plan them. I folded the papers gently, the way I used to fold my son's shirts when he was little, and slipped them into my cardigan pocket. My hands were trembling, but my face stayed calm. That's something life teaches you, sweetheart. When you've been through enough storms, you learn not to show when the wind starts blowing. I brewed myself some coffee, even though my stomach felt sick. The smell filled the air, the same smell that had filled this kitchen for 40 years. But now it didn't smell like home anymore. It smelled like loss. That afternoon, I called Carol, my neighbor and oldest friend. She's the kind of woman who's seen everything life can throw. When she picked up, I tried to sound normal. "Carol," I said quietly, "you still have that friend who works at the county office?" There was a pause. "I do. Why?" I hesitated, just wondering if I could verify a property record. "Mine, actually." She didn't ask too many questions, bless her. She just said, "Come over after lunch. We'll check it." So I did. I walked to her house, trying not to let my legs shake. She sat me down with a cup of tea while she dialed her friend. I could hear the faint voice on the other end, cheerful, casual, until Carol's tone changed. "Wait, what did you say?" she asked. Her eyes darted up at me, then away. "You're sure?" "Filed when?" I felt my chest tighten, when she hung up. Her voice was low. "Maggie, someone filed a transfer intent on your property last Thursday. Says it's pending approval. The names listed are Nicole and Daniel Foster." For a moment, I couldn't hear anything. It was like the world went silent, except for the sound of the clock ticking on her wall. "Are you sure?" I whispered. She reached over and took my hand. "I'm sure, honey." "I'm sorry." That was the moment my heart didn't just break, it hardened. I thanked her, left quietly, and walked home slower than I ever had in my life. Every step felt heavy with memories. Daniel's first steps on this porch, his laughter echoing through the hallway, the Christmas mornings when this house smelled of cinnamon and hope. And now, my son, my only child, had tried to give it away. When I reached home, Nicole was in the living room, watching TV with her feet on my coffee table. She didn't even move them when I walked in. "Oh, you're back," she said flatly. "I never left," I replied. She smirked. "Well, legally speaking, that might not be true for long." Those words hung in the air like poison. I turned to her slowly. "What did you say?" She shrugged. "Just saying. Daniel and I have been looking into options. It's better for everyone if the house is under both our names now. You know, for tax reasons." "For tax reasons," I repeated her words like they were ash in my mouth. "And you thought you'd do that without telling me?" She looked right at me, her expression cool and careless. "You were away. Things needed to move forward. Daniel said you'd agree." I stared at her, not with anger, but something colder, pity. "Do you really think papers make you the owner of a home?" I said quietly. "This house was built on every hour I spent scrubbing floors and skipping meals so Daniel could go to college. You think a signature can erase that? She rolled her eyes. You're being dramatic. It's just property, not to me. Asterisk that night, I didn't speak to either of them. I closed my door, locked it, and pulled out my phone. I took photos of every page, the deed, the fake transfer, the signatures. Then I opened my old laptop and searched for the local notary office's number. A man named Frank Peterson answered. I remembered him vaguely. He'd notarized my will years ago. Mr. Peterson, I said softly, this is Margaret Foster. You notarized a document for me a while back. I just need to confirm something. Sure thing, Mrs. Foster, he said kindly. What's the document? I told him the number at the bottom of the page and waited. He clicked around on his end for a few seconds. Then he said, That's not my stamp, ma'am. Looks like someone copied it. Asterisk, my chest went tight. So it's fake? I'd say so. You should report that to the clerk's office immediately. Thank you, I whispered and hung up. I sat there for a long time, holding my phone like it weighed 1,000 pounds. By morning, I had a plan. I dressed neatly, nothing fancy, just my good cardigan and slacks, and went down to the county registrar's office. The young woman behind the counter looked too cheerful for the kind of business I was bringing her. Ma'am, I'd like to verify a property record under my name, I said. Sliding my ID across the counter, she typed a few keys and frowned. Mrs. Foster, it looks like there's a pending transfer on this property. I'm aware, I said. I didn't authorize it. Her eyebrows rose. Then you'll want to file a fraud declaration. I can print the forms. I thanked her, took the papers, and filled them out right there, my hands steady now. Every letter I wrote was a piece of my strength coming back. When I walked out into the cold afternoon air, I looked up at the courthouse flag waving in the wind. I'd never been much of a fighter, but that day I felt something new, not anger, not even revenge. It was something quieter. Resolved. That evening, I came home and found Nicole in the kitchen again, leaning on the counter, sipping wine from one of my good glasses. She looked at me with that same smirk. Rough day? I smiled back, calm as ever. No, dear. Actually, it was productive. She blinked, confused. I had the forgery verified, I said softly. And I filed a fraud report. You and Daniel should expect a notice soon. Her face went pale. You did what? I walked past her, opened the cabinet, and pulled out my own mug, the one with my initials carved at the bottom. You locked my kitchen, I said quietly. Now let's see how it feels when the law locks you out of my house. And for the first time since I came home, I enjoyed my coffee in peace. The letter from the registrar came 3 days later, a pale yellow envelope, official looking, with the county seal printed across the top. I found it in the mailbox wedged between grocery coupons and an electric bill. For a long time, I just stood there at the end of the driveway, feeling the wind brush my face. My hands didn't tremble anymore. I wasn't afraid now. I was ready. Inside, Nicole was on the couch, scrolling on her phone. Daniel was sitting beside her, pretending to read something on his laptop. The air between them felt strange, tense, cautious. Maybe they already sensed something. I walked in, closed the door behind me, and held the envelope up. This came for you, I said quietly. Nicole barely looked up. Oh, just leave it there. I think you'll want to open it. Something in my tone must have caught her attention. She set her phone down, took the envelope, and tore it open. I watched her eyes move across the page. Slowly, her expression shifted, confusion first, then panic. What is this? She said sharply. Daniel looked up. What's wrong? She turned the paper toward him, her hand shaking now. It says there's a fraud investigation on the property transfer. Who did this? I sipped my tea. I did. Daniel blinked. Mom, what do you mean? Asterisk, I walked over and placed my cup gently on the table between us. I mean, I went down to the registrar's office, had the signature verified, and filed a formal complaint. They're investigating the forgery you both submitted. He stared at me, stunned. Mom, it's not like that. Then what's it like? I interrupted softly. Because last I checked, my name disappeared from my own deed while I was out of town. And your wife here seems to have no problem making herself at home. Nicole jumped in, voice rising. We didn't forge anything. We were trying to secure the house for the future. You're old, Maggie. What if something happened to you? Her words cut through the room like a cold draft. I stood there quietly, the way people do before a storm hits. If something happened to me, I said slowly, the house would still be mine until that day came. You don't get to decide my future, Nicole. And you don't get to steal it while I'm not looking. Daniel stood up, hands out. Mom, please, you don't understand. Nicole said. I turned to him. No, Daniel. What I understand is that my son, the boy I raised on my own, signed away his mother's home while she was taking care of her sick sister. That's what I understand. He froze. The shame in his face said everything words couldn't. Nicole slammed the papers down on the table. You're making this into something it's not. Oh, I think it's exactly what it is, I said calmly. Fraud, forgery, betrayal. For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the faint ticking of the clock on the wall, that same clock Daniel made in high school woodshop, still ticking through everything we'd become. Then Nicole crossed her arms, trying to sound confident again. You can't prove it was us. Oh, I can, I replied. Mr. Peterson confirmed his notary stamp was falsified. The registrar's office logged your submission under your email address. And I took photos of the documents before you even knew I found them. Her face went white. I leaned forward just a little. You may have underestimated an old woman, dear. But you forgot. I've been running this household longer than you've been alive. I notice everything. Daniel rubbed his forehead. Mom, please, I didn't mean for it to go this far. Nicole said it was just paperwork, that it was temporary, that we'd talk to you after. I felt my voice crack slightly, not from weakness, but from the weight of it all. And you believed her? Without asking me? Without even calling? He looked down. I didn't want to upset you. I laughed, a quiet, sad sound. Oh, Daniel. You didn't want to upset me, so you helped someone steal my home. That's not love, son. That's cowardice. Nicole threw up her hands. You're unbelievable. You act like we broke into a bank. It's just a piece of paper. I turned to her. To you, maybe. To me, it's 40 years of my life. Every nail in this house, every crack in these walls. I earned it. And you tried to take it while smiling at my face. She took a step forward, voice sharp. You think anyone will believe you? We live here, Daniel's your family, and you're just some bitter old woman. That's when I held up my phone. I recorded our conversation, I said simply. Every word you just said, every threat, every admission. So yes, they'll believe me. Nicole's mouth opened, then closed again. Her confidence broke like glass. I turned to Daniel. You have two choices, son. You can stand beside her and face the consequences, or you can help me make this right. He didn't answer. Not at first. He just sat down, head in his hands. I watched him, my grown boy, shoulders slumped, the man I once believed would never betray me. I didn't feel angry anymore. Just tired. After a long silence, he whispered, I'll fix it. Mom, I'll talk to the registrar. I'll withdraw everything. I promise. I nodded. Good, do it soon. Then I turned to Nicole. And you, pack your things. You're leaving this house by the end of the week. That's not a request. That's a notice. She stared at me, her face twisting with rage. You can't throw me out. Watch me, I said quietly. I picked up the envelope from the table, folded it neatly, and tucked it under my arm. The sheriff's office will deliver the formal order tomorrow. I'd suggest you be gone before then. Nicole stormed off, slamming the bedroom door so hard the windows rattled. Daniel followed her, muttering something I couldn't hear. I just stood there in the quiet, looking around the room that had become a battlefield. My eyes landed on a small photo frame. Daniel as a little boy, holding a toy hammer, smiling up at me as I painted the living room. I touched the glass gently. "I built this home for you," I whispered. "And now I'm building it back for myself." That night, I made tea and sat in the living room, watching the sun fade through the curtains. The air finally felt still. For the first time since I'd returned, I wasn't afraid of losing anything because they'd already taken everything they could, except my dignity, and I wasn't about to let them have that. 2. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. The sun had just started to rise, and the kitchen window glowed faint orange. It used to be my favorite sight, that peaceful light stretching across the countertop, the promise of another simple day. But this morning was different. Today wasn't about peace. It was about proof. I put on a clean blouse, brushed my hair back, and brewed a pot of coffee, the same way I'd done every morning for 40 years. But I didn't make an extra cup for Daniel or Nicole. That small act of habit was gone now. Around 10 o'clock, I heard a car pull into the driveway, tires crunching on gravel, a firm engine idle. When I looked out the window, my heart gave a strange, quiet flutter. A county sheriff stepped out of the car, holding a clipboard and a thick envelope. It was time. Nicole came out of the bedroom, wearing her robe and that usual glare, but when she saw the uniformed man at the door, her face drained of color. I opened the door calmly. "Good morning, officer. Mrs. Margaret Foster?" "Yes, that's me." He nodded. "I have a court-issued notice regarding property fraud and an immediate cease occupancy order for 2 individuals, Daniel and Nicole Foster." I could feel Nicole's eyes burning holes in my back. "I'll need them both present to serve it formally," he said. "They're here," I replied. I stepped aside, gesturing toward the living room. Nicole stood frozen, arms crossed, jaw tight. Daniel came out of the hallway slowly, looking like a man walking toward his own verdict. The sheriff cleared his throat and began reading. His voice was even, professional, the kind of tone that fills a room without ever needing to shout. By order of the county clerk's office, all unauthorized transfer or occupation of property located at 143 Oak Hill Lane is hereby suspended pending investigation. The lawful owner, Mrs. Margaret Foster, retains full rights of ownership and residence. Nicole let out a bitter laugh. "This is ridiculous. She's manipulating the system. She's senile." The sheriff didn't even look at her. "Ma'am, if you have objections, you can raise them in court. For now, this order is legally binding. You have 48 hours to vacate the premises." Daniel closed his eyes. "Mom, please." I held up a hand. "No, Daniel. You had your chance to fix this before it came to this point." Nicole snatched the papers from the sheriff's hand, flipping through them with shaking fingers. "You'll regret this, you old witch." "Ma'am," the sheriff warned sharply, "I'd advise you to watch your language." She went silent, seething. Daniel looked at me, his voice breaking. "Mom, I swear, I didn't mean—" "Stop," I said quietly. "There's nothing left to explain. You sign those papers, Daniel. You chose silence when you should have chosen me." He looked away, tears threatening his eyes. For a moment, I saw the little boy he used to be, the one who'd bring me wildflowers from the yard, proud and smiling. But that boy was gone now, replaced by a man who'd traded love for convenience. The sheriff handed me a copy of the order and tipped his hat. "If they refuse to leave after the deadline, ma'am, call us directly. We'll handle it." "Thank you, officer," I said softly. He left, and the sound of his car pulling away was like a door closing on a chapter of my life. For a moment, there was silence. Then, all at once, Nicole exploded. "You think you've won? You think anyone will believe your little sob story? You'll die alone in this dusty house." Her words hit the walls, bouncing through the living room, loud and venomous. I didn't respond. I just picked up my coffee cup and took a slow sip. Silence, I've learned, is the sharpest weapon you can wield against cruelty. "Finally," I said quietly, "I'd rather die alone in peace than live surrounded by snakes." Her mouth opened, then shut. She turned and stormed off into the bedroom. Daniel stayed behind, standing awkwardly by the couch. "Mom, I don't know how to fix this," he whispered. "You already did," I said. "By showing me who you've become." He dropped his gaze, shoulders slumping. "I'll pack our things." I nodded and walked to the front porch. Outside, the air was crisp and cool. A few of the neighbors had gathered across the street, pretending to trim hedges or water plants while sneaking glances our way. Word travels fast in small towns, especially when a sheriff's car parks out front. I didn't mind. Let them see. Let them whisper. Let them learn that even old women still know how to fight back. Later that afternoon, Carol came by, holding 2 cups of coffee. "I saw the sheriff's car," she said softly. "You okay?" I smiled faintly. "Better than I've been in weeks." She handed me one of the cups and sat beside me on the porch swing. "I never liked that girl," she muttered. "Neither did I," I said, chuckling. For a while, we just sat in silence, listening to the wind rustle through the trees. It felt peaceful. The kind of peace that comes after a storm when the air smells new again. That evening, I heard drawers opening, zippers closing, footsteps moving back and forth. They were packing. The sound echoed down the hallway, sharp, frantic, defeated. Nicole came out once more, her face streaked with anger and something that almost looked like fear. "You'll regret this," she hissed. I looked up from my knitting. I already regretted raising a son who let this happen. I'm done regretting now. She glared at me one last time, then turned and walked out. Slamming the door behind her. Daniel followed a few minutes later, carrying boxes to the car. Before he left, he stood in the doorway for a long moment. As if waiting for me to stop him, I didn't. He finally said, voice trembling, "I'm sorry, Mom." I looked at him, and this time my voice was soft, not angry, just tired. "I know you are, but sorry doesn't rebuild trust. Only time can do that." He nodded, his eyes glistening, and left without another word. I watched their car pull away, taillights glowing red against the fading sun. The silence that followed was heavier than I expected, but it wasn't empty. It was clean, like the air after rain. Carol came over later that evening with a small smile. "Well," she said, "looks like you've got your house back." I looked around the room, the pictures on the wall, the old clock ticking faithfully, the scent of coffee in the air, and nodded. Double quotes, "Yes," I said softly. "And this time, no one's ever taking it from me again." That night, I made myself a simple dinner, chicken soup and toast, and ate it at the kitchen table, alone but peaceful. When I finished, I washed the dishes, wiped the counter, and looked out at the darkened yard. The lights from Carol's house twinkled faintly in the distance, and for the first time in weeks, I whispered to myself, "I'm home." The morning after they left. The house felt too quiet, the kind of quiet that echoes. Every sound seemed louder, the tick of the kitchen clock, the hum of the refrigerator, the rustle of the curtains in the soft morning air. For a moment, I stood there by the window, coffee cup in hand, watching the sunlight spill across the floorboards. The same floorboards I'd scrubbed 1,000 times, barefoot and humming. When Daniel was a boy, now it was just me again. But you know what, sweetheart? It didn't feel lonely. It felt peaceful. I started my day the way I used to, watering the plants by the porch, feeding the stray cat that visits every morning, and then baking a small batch of cornbread, just because I could. No locks on the pantry. No perfume lingering in the air that didn't belong. No tension hiding behind every word. When I opened the cupboard and saw everything where it was supposed to be, I smiled to myself. Welcome home, Maggie, I whispered. That afternoon, Carol came over carrying a basket of fresh apples. You holding up okay? She asked as she stepped inside. I'm doing better than okay, I said. I'm free. We laughed, a soft, tired kind of laugh that only women our age truly understand. We sat on the porch again, peeling apples and talking about the little things, her grandkids, the church bake sale, the neighbor's new fence that everyone secretly hated Dot for the first time in a long while. The conversation wasn't shadowed by tension or whispers. It was just two old friends sitting under the afternoon sun, letting life feel simple again. At one point, Carol looked at me and said, You know, Maggie, not many women would have handled it the way you did. Calm, legal, dignified. Most would have thrown them out by their ears. I smiled faintly. I thought about it, I admitted. But I realized something: when people try to steal your peace, the worst thing you can do is let them take your grace with it. She nodded slowly. Grace, that's exactly what it was. That night after Carol left, I walked through the house room by room. Each one held memories. The wallpaper Daniel helped me put up when he was 10. The squeaky floorboard in the hallway, the crack in the window pane that I always meant to fix but never did. For years, I'd thought this house was just wood and nails. But it wasn't. It was me. Every inch of it carried the story of who I am. The work, the love, the loss, the endurance. I went to my bedroom, sat down on the edge of the bed, and pulled out the deed, the original one. The real one. I traced my name with my finger. The ink slightly faded after all these years. There was something powerful about seeing your own name on paper, not because of ownership, but because of what it stood for. It stood for every sacrifice that built this place, every late night of overtime, every morning of sore hands, every prayer whispered over unpaid bills that somehow got paid anyway. I tucked the deed safely back into its folder, placed it in the drawer, and smiled. 2 days later, Daniel called. His name lit up on the screen, and I stared at it for a moment, unsure if I was ready to hear his voice. But I answered, Mom? His voice was small, fragile. Yes, Daniel. I just wanted to check on you. I'm fine, I said softly. The house is quiet again. He hesitated. I'm sorry. About everything. About Nicole. About the papers. I was scared. We were drowning in debt. She said it was the only way to get a loan. I didn't think. That's the problem, I said gently. You didn't think? There was silence on the line. Then he said, I miss you, Mom. I miss you too, I admitted. But I can't trust you yet. And love without trust is like a house without a foundation. It falls apart. He sniffled, then said, I understand. I hope someday, I told him, you build something strong enough to stand on your own. And when you do, you're welcome here again. But not before. We said goodbye, and I hung up. My heart hurt, but it wasn't the sharp pain it used to be. It was the ache of healing, tender but clean. That evening, I poured myself a cup of tea and sat by the window as the sky turned pink and gold. I could hear the faint sound of children playing down the street, the crickets starting their evening chorus, and the wind brushing the curtains gently. I thought about everything that had happened, the betrayal, the lies, the fear, the quiet strength I didn't know I still had, and I realized something important. Sometimes, losing people doesn't mean losing yourself. Sometimes, it's how you find yourself again. I spent the next few weeks reclaiming my space in small ways. Painted the kitchen a pale yellow, like it was when my husband was still alive. I planted new flowers by the front porch, daisies, his favorite. I even rearranged the living room, moving Nicole's gaudy vases to the garage where they belonged. The house began to feel alive again, not haunted by what happened, but renewed by the woman who refused to give up on it. One Sunday morning, As I sat in church beside Carol, the pastor said something that stuck with me. He said, "Forgiveness doesn't mean staying silent. It means letting go of the burden, not the boundaries." That's exactly what I had done. I had set boundaries, firm ones, but I'd also let go of the bitterness that would have chained me to the past. I walked out of church that day feeling lighter. The sun was bright, the air smelled like cut grass, and I thought to myself, this is what freedom feels like. When I got home, I brewed a fresh pot of coffee, opened the windows, and let the warm breeze fill the house. The birds outside were singing, the same ones that had gone quiet when the tension filled these walls, and I smiled, not because I'd won, but because I'd survived, because sometimes surviving is the victory. You know, sweetheart, when you get to my age, people think you're easy to fool. They think you've slowed down, that your eyes don't catch the details anymore, but what they don't realize is, time sharpens the spirit. Age doesn't make you weaker. It makes you watch quietly. And in that quiet, you see everything. I learned that people can take many things from you, your trust, your comfort, even your family for a while, but they can't take your worth. Only you can hand that over. And I decided that day I never would again. Sometimes I still think about Daniel. I wonder if he's eating well, if he finally learned to fix that leaky faucet like his father used to do. I pray for him, not because I'm weak, but because bitterness is a chain, and I refuse to live chained to anyone's choices but my own. If he ever knocks on this door again, I'll answer, but this time on my terms. The house feels different now. Every sound means something again. The creak of the floorboards, the kettle's low whistle, the screen door tapping in the wind. They're not ghosts of betrayal anymore. Reminders that peace doesn't live in silence. It lives in safety. And safety comes from knowing where you stand. Last night, I sat out on the porch, the same one I painted with Daniel when he was 12. The boards are worn now, but they hold like me. Carol sat beside me, humming softly, and for the first time in a long time, I felt grateful, not just for winning my fight, but for fighting it the right way. See, revenge would have been easy. Screaming, throwing them out, that would have felt good for 5 minutes, but respect, dignity, the law, that's the kind of justice that lasts. That's the kind you can sleep beside at night. I've learned that protecting your peace isn't cruelty. It's self-respect. Forgiveness doesn't mean inviting people back into your home. Sometimes it just means not letting their memory poison your mornings. When I wake up now, I thank God for another day of quiet coffee and sunlight on the curtains. No locks on my pantry. No fear in my heart. Just me, Maggie Foster, homeowner, mother, survivor. And maybe, if anyone out there is listening, sitting in their own kitchen right now, wondering if they should stand up for themselves, I hope you hear me when I say this. You don't have to scream to be strong. You don't have to fight dirty to win. You just have to remember who you are and protect that, no matter who tries to take it from you. Because sometimes the biggest victory isn't throwing someone out. It's opening the door to peace and closing it gently behind you. Now tell me, sweetheart, if it were your home, your name on that deed, your son caught between love and loyalty, would you have done what I did? Thank you for listening, darling. If my story touched your heart, don't forget to share it. Someone out there might need to hear that it's never too late to take your power back. Until next time, keep your faith strong, your doors open to kindness, and your name right where it belongs.